you're Los Angeles. What is the nature of this historic opportunity, and what is the most important thing that can be done in order to seize that?
Thank you. First thing I just want to say very quickly is anybody in this room who was taught a youth in Prince George's County, Maryland, or LA, thank you very much. Don't tell me it can't be done in LA, because your proof points, 2 of them are sitting right inside of the room. So you can't tell me this is not possible in Los Angeles. And you also can't tell me that we're not willing to die for the cause. For me, dying for the cause is turning our back on a youth who lives in circumstances of poverty in Los Angeles. One of our kids who lives under the freeway, one of our kids who has no parent. That is not going to be possible. We know it can be done. This is really an issue around courage. We have the skill. How courageous are we going to be about the work? I think about the issues that lay in front of us, and many of these issues are going to be very risky. And if 11,000 people descended on LA to press for a cause, you can't turn back from that. The system, and I mean we are connected with our labor partners and the administration, needs to be pressed to a point where it works for kids and for the teachers in this room. It actually can't be a prevention any longer. It actually must work. And systems only work when they're pressed against very hard around that issue. So I think the idea is we go back to our places and we do great work in small cities. There is a power of the collective as we think about descending on cities en masse that I think is significant around that.
So let me just follow up, John. You too stand on the platform of the transformative results you've achieved, leading to tremendous reform in Prince George's County, your work at the Gates Foundation and elsewhere. You're now arriving in Los Angeles. There are, I bet, are some people in this room who are in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, could you describe, and by extension, you can imagine what is needed in other communities around the country. Right? For all the TFA alum, the core members and others in Los Angeles, as you embark on the superintendency, what do you need from them in order to drive success in Los Angeles at scale over the next several years?
So a couple of things. En masse, come and join New Day in LA. I think that's very, very important. We can't just have what we have in the room. We need 3 or 4 times those numbers to come. Second of all is, raise your voice as loud as possible about that we will not allow rules, regulations, and the system to put at peril high-quality teaching at any expense. And we will not stand up for, even if they're currently conventional rules that say that youth who live in circumstances of poverty get the least prepared, the poorest conditions, and the most highly mobile schools. That is not okay for adults. We are facing serious and legitimate ways to think about not allowing that to happen for kids. It can't be one person. It can't be just a school board, no matter how courageous those things can be. The movement needs an organization to respond to it. Don't allow it not to happen. That would be one thing I would need. And then the third thing is be relentless about sticking around to help us out.
It's not going to be quick. It's interesting, on the Egypt analogy, this, in some ways, what happens next is the most important in Egypt. How do people use the responsibility and power to drive success? And the way the message is here, how do people in this room use responsibility and power that you've got in your classrooms, your schools, your school systems, your advocacy organizations, in order to drive the kind of transformative success that we now have seen demonstrably true at small scale in pockets of schools, a few school systems making gains. But overall, our performance as a country, as people know, is flat. The U.S. used to be #1 in the world in education. We had wild inequities that were awful. We still were #1. We now have slipped to the middle of the pack among industrialized nations, and that's because we've stayed flat while some other countries are moving ahead, and our inequities have only closed this much. At the core of that, there is an insight that's being talked about here that I want to address very explicitly and hear from at least a couple of you on, which is the question about what is the power of high-quality education to transform poverty and lift kids out of poverty. In the 1960s, Wendy referred to the Coleman Report describing